Behind every locked door lies a story the world was never meant to hear. Welcome to Behind Bars TV, where we uncover the hidden realities of the world's toughest prisons, untold inmate experiences, and the systems built to contain them. From supermax facilities to forgotten penitentiaries, we reveal the truth behind concrete walls and razor wire. This is not fiction. This is the world behind bars.
A place where men vanished. There was a place in America where men disappeared long before they died. A place where the punishment was so brutal inmates begged for the electric chair instead of another night inside. This place wasn't overseas. It wasn't a war prison. It was built on American soil, and it operated for decades. Tonight, we open the doors of the Red Hat Cellblock. And once you see inside, you'll never unsee it. The plantation that became a prison. Before the Red Hat ever existed, there was Angola. 18,000 acres. Bigger than Manhattan. Built on a former slave plantation. In the early 1900s, Angola wasn't just a prison. It was the plantation, just with new slaves. Prisoners weren't inmates. They were hands. Bodies for picking cotton, cutting cane, and working until their backs split open. Guards rode on horseback with rifles and whips. And discipline wasn't a policy. It was a threat that hung in the air thicker than Louisiana heat. But Angola had a problem. Men kept fighting back. Men kept trying to escape. Men kept dying. So the prison built an answer. A concrete answer. A permanent answer. The Red Hat Cellblock. A place designed to break the human body so completely, escape wouldn't even cross your mind. Not twice. The birth of a hellhole. The Red Hat opened in 1933. It was named after the bright red metal helmets inmates were forced to wear, helmets that overheated under the Louisiana sun and burned their scalps. Guards called them identifiers. Inmates called them skull cookers. The block itself was a long, narrow hallway of misery. 30 tiny cells. No beds. No toilets. Just an iron door, a concrete floor, and a hole. Men didn't sleep, they passed out. Men didn't eat, they survived. Men didn't live, they waited for their brains to crack. Inside the Red Hat, the only light came when a guard opened your door, usually to throw in food or drag someone out. Some men went insane. Some became silent. Some started screaming and never stopped. Every prisoner inside Angola feared one sentence more than death. Put him in the Red Hat. A day you didn't survive. You endured. Let's walk through a day in the Red Hat. If you can call it a day. There was no sunrise. No clocks. No routine. Just heat, darkness, and the sound of men losing themselves. Food wasn't handed to you. It was thrown. A scoop of mush splattered on the floor. Rats ate beside you. Sometimes on you. Temperature? In summer, it climbed to 120 degrees inside the block. In winter, men shivered until their teeth cracked. Guards didn't check on your comfort. They checked to see if you were still breathing. And if you weren't, they shrugged. Plenty more prisoners in the fields. The Red Hat wasn't built to rehabilitate. It was built to erase. Erase memories. Erase identity. Erase hope. And sometimes erase men completely. The man who whispered to the walls. Prison records mention him only as Peterson. No first name. No backstory. But Angola legends kept him alive. Peterson lasted 42 days in the Red Hat. When guards finally pulled him out, he couldn't speak normally. He talked sideways, according to one account. But other inmates said something else. Peterson wasn't talking to guards, or inmates, or himself. He was talking to the walls. And the walls were talking back. Even after they returned him to general population, Peterson would place his ear against concrete and whisper for hours. Some inmates said he was praying. Others said he was bargaining. One swore Peterson was translating what the Red Hat said. Peterson didn't die in the Red Hat. He died years later, quietly in his sleep. But prisoners who knew him said something darker. His mind never left that cell. Only his body did. The runner who didn't last 48 hours. Clark was young, fast, desperate. One afternoon, on farm duty, he sprinted. No tools. No weapon. Just a man trying to outrun a life sentence. He didn't make it 300 yards. Guards caught him, beat him, dragged him back. Then the warden made a decision. 2 days in the Red Hat. Let the heat teach him. Clark never saw the third day. Official records said, heat exhaustion complicated by disciplinary stress. But inmate witnesses said otherwise. Clark screamed until his voice broke. Then he kept screaming without sound. Then he stopped. When guards opened the door, Clark was face down. Skin blistered. Tongue split. Eyes open. As if he died mid-scream. John Henry. The man who refused to break. John Henry wasn't famous. But inside Angola, he became legend. A fighter with a stubborn spirit. A man who went to the Red Hat 3 separate times. And came back each time with fire in his eyes. After his third round, guards dragged him out, dehydrated, shaking, barely able to stand. He looked at the warden and whispered, "Send me to the fields. Let me die in the sun, but don't put me back in that hole." The warden didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew. Even the fields were mercy compared to the Red Hat. The cell block that America tried to forget. For decades, Angola denied everything. They said the Red Hat stories were exaggerated. Rumors, inmate folklore. But the truth leaked out. Medical logs with unexplained injuries. Confiscated letters describing torture. Testimonies from former guards. And the structure itself, built like punishment, not rehabilitation. By the 1970s, journalists and lawyers forced the world to see inside. Federal pressure cracked the walls. And in 1972, the Red Hat Cellblock was finally shut down. But even now, Angola staff say the block never really died. Its legacy still stalks the prison grounds. Some men swear they hear screams in the old hallway. Some say the air turns cold near the entrance. Others refuse to walk past it at night. Because the Red Hat wasn't just a place. It was a wound. And wounds don't close cleanly. The warden who built a monster. Every nightmare has an architect. And the Red Hat Cellblock had one too. His name rarely appears in modern documentaries, but inside Angola's archived paperwork, the old, dusty boxes no one likes to open, his signature is everywhere. Warden Louis H. Jones. To inmates, he was known by one nickname, the Farmer. Because he didn't see prisoners as humans. He saw them as crops. Things you manage, things you cut down, things you replace. And when Warden Jones walked the yard, whistling softly with his hands behind his back, inmates knew something was about to break. Not a rule, not a policy, a person. He ordered the Red Hat built in the early 30s after what he called unacceptable disobedience. That disobedience was a rebellion sparked by starvation, beatings, and impossible work hours. The rebellion ended quickly. The punishment lasted decades. Jones wanted a place where discipline didn't require paperwork, where fear could be manufactured, where he could put a man and watch him dissolve. He didn't design the Red Hat as a cell block. He designed it as a warning, a place he never expected anyone to survive. Inside the block, the sound that drove men mad. People think darkness was the worst part of the Red Hat. It wasn't. It was the sound. See, the block was built with thick, uneven concrete, the kind that amplifies echoes in strange ways. A man shouting in cell 1 could sound like whispering in cell 10. A man banging on his door might sound like the banging comes from inside the walls. And when multiple inmates cried out at night, the echoes layered into a horrifying, surreal choir. One former guard said, "It didn't sound like people. It sounded like the building itself was screaming." Another said he refused to walk the hallway without a partner because he heard footsteps behind him even when the place was empty. The echoes didn't just bounce. They followed. Imagine trying to sleep in a box where every cough becomes a monster, where every drip of water sounds like someone whispering your name, where a man 3 cells down sobs so hard you feel it vibrating through your ribs. In solitude, you hear things you aren't supposed to hear. And in the Red Hat, silence didn't exist. The night the lights came on. Most of the time, the Red Hat existed in total darkness. But one night, for reasons no one fully agrees on, the guards turned every light on at once. If you talk to old Angola inmates, the ones who shuffle when they walk and stare a little too long at blank walls, they swear that night was the closest thing to hell they'd ever seen. Because when the lights came on, the truth came with them. Men who hadn't seen light in weeks shielded their eyes, clawing at the air like animals caught in a trap. Bodies covered in bite marks, from rats, from insects, from each other. Skin blistered from heat. Eyes sunken. Bones visible through thin flesh. One man sat perfectly still with a rope of torn shirt wrapped around his neck, like he'd been trying to work up the courage to pull. Another was laughing uncontrollably, slamming his head gently against the wall, whispering, "The light ain't real, boys. The light ain't real." A third man, large, muscular, feared in general population, curled in a corner like a terrified child. The guards looked down the corridor, and for a second even they froze, because it wasn't a hallway of inmates. It was a hallway of ghosts. The light stayed on for only a few minutes. Then everything went dark again. To this day, nobody knows why the power was turned on. But every inmate who lived to tell the story said the same thing. Darkness was better. The guard who broke the code. For decades, guards at Angola followed one rule. What happens inside stays inside. Doesn't matter if a man dies. Doesn't matter if a man screams. Doesn't matter if a man begs for water, mercy, or God. You don't talk. You don't confess. You don't grow a conscience. But one guard did. His name was Mark Dillard, a young man who took the job because the depression left him no choice. He was 22, quiet, and believed in law, and ordered the way some men believe in church. But after 6 months patrolling the Red Hat corridor, something cracked. Dillard wrote a letter, a long, scathing confession, and mailed it to a local pastor. The letter accused the prison of running a torture chamber disguised as discipline. It claimed men were left without medical care, locked in unbearable heat, beaten for speaking, left naked in winter, denied water for days. And the most chilling line? We do not watch them die. We watch them disappear. The pastor held onto the letter for years, terrified to release it. If he had spoken sooner, maybe the Red Hat would have closed earlier. But fear silenced him. Fear kept the Red Hat alive. The escape attempt that exposed everything. The Red Hat wasn't just a place for punishment. It was often used for men who tried to escape. And in 1942, one escape attempt changed everything. 3 inmates, Daniels, Hodge, and Ricks, decided they'd rather die running than rot in the Red Hat. They planned for months. Stealing scraps, studying guard rotations, using bits of wire to pick locks on field shackles. One sweltering afternoon, with sweat running into their eyes and the sun melting the back of their necks, they sprinted. Guards fired. Horses chased. Heat waves distorted everything. Daniels fell first, shot in the back. Hodge collapsed from heat stroke. Only Ricks made it to the riverbank. He dove in, swam like he'd been born in the water. For a moment, it looked like he might make it. Then a guard caught him downstream. They brought Ricks back to the Red Hat, beaten, half-drowned, delirious. 3 days later, a doctor documented extreme psychological collapse and ordered him removed. But the truth leaked out. The doctor found bruises, burns, dehydration, internal bleeding, and signs Ricks hadn't slept or eaten. The report made it to a lawyer. The lawyer made it to a judge. And the judge started asking questions. It would take 30 more years for the block to close. But this was the first crack. A small one, but enough for the truth to start bleeding through. The experiments no one wanted to name. Angola officials always denied it, but the evidence it piles up like bodies. The Red Hat wasn't just a place to punish men. It was a place to study them. Not with lab coats. Not with clipboards. Not officially, but every guard, every warden, every doctor assigned to the block understood the same truth. What happens to a human mind when you take away everything? Light, sound, movement, time, dignity. What's left? Some men hallucinated. Some forgot their own names. Some developed new personalities. Some refused to speak even after they were released. Some became violent in ways they never were before. Some became quiet, frighteningly quiet. And the thing is, guards kept notes. Not the kind you find in official reports, but the scribbled kind, tucked in pockets and logbooks. Inmate began talking to unseen figure. Subject refused to eat for 2 days. Laughing fits during the night. Repeated prayer to non-existent deity. Believes rats are messengers. These weren't discipline notes. These were observations. And over time, a pattern emerged. After 20 days, most men broke. After 30, they were different men entirely. After 40, even the guards didn't recognize them. The Red Hat wasn't just torture. It was transformation. And Angola was watching. The prisoner who documented everything. If not for one inmate, the true horrors of the Red Hat might have been buried forever. His name was Samuel Incarter, convicted of forgery, educated, quiet, sharp, the kind of man who remembered everything. Ink was assigned clerical duties before he landed in the Red Hat. That meant he knew where records were stored, what guards were assigned, which rooms were kept locked, which hallways were avoided. When Ink got thrown into the Red Hat for insubordination, which usually meant looking a guard in the eye too long, he didn't break. At least, not the way they expected. He started memorizing. He counted drips of water to track time. He whispered details in the dark so he wouldn't forget them. He recited guard conversations word for word. He cataloged screams, incidents, injuries, deaths. He stored it all in his mind, a mental archive. When he finally got out after 17 days, Ink did something nobody expected. He wrote it all down. Secret notes, hidden pages, descriptions of conditions even guards didn't know he witnessed. He recorded temperatures that melted skin, rats chewing on sleeping inmates, guards forcing fights for entertainment, men begging to die, the light night incident, a secret room used for beatings, a guard who went missing after threatening to report abuses, a doctor who falsified death records. Ink smuggled pages out through a trusted kitchen worker, one sheet at a time. Those pages resurfaced decades later in a university archive. And historians? They didn't just call them evidence. They called them testimony from hell. The heatwave that cooked the block. Louisiana summers are legendary. Thick, heavy, choking heat. But in 1947, a heat wave hit that made the Red Hat a death trap. For 5 straight days, temperatures outside rose above 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius. Inside the Red Hat, it climbed much higher. Concrete walls absorbed heat like ovens. Metal doors burned the skin on contact. The red helmets became literal branding irons. Guards refused to enter the block. Inmates begged for water. Men passed out on the floor. Some hallucinated rivers flowing across the walls. Others clawed at the air, gasping for breath. Incarter's notes described the scene. It smelled like hot iron and death. Men were cooking alive. On day 4, an inmate named Theodore Miles collapsed. Then another. Then another. By day 5, 6 inmates were dead. Angola tried to hide it. Doctors wrote. Cardiac arrest. Respiratory failure. Heat complications. Not one death mentioned the Red Hat. But other inmates talked. And guards whispered. And the story spread through the prison like wildfire. It was the largest unofficial mass casualty event in Angola's history. And the warden? He blamed the men. If they followed rules, they wouldn't be in there. The doctor who couldn't take it anymore. Dr. Clarence Weaver had worked at Angola for only 8 months when he shattered. He'd been trained in medicine. But the Red Hat? That wasn't medicine. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't anything a doctor was meant to be part of. After the heatwave deaths, Weaver refused to sign more fake reports. He stormed into Warden Jones' office and said, "We're killing people." Jones stared at him, silent. Then he said, "No, doctor. They're killing themselves." That broke something in Weaver. 2 weeks later, he quit, packed his bag, left Angola forever. But before he left, he made copies of everything: death reports, temperature logs, medical notes, cause of death contradictions, injury diagrams, guard statements, handwritten memos about suppressing information. Weaver mailed the copies to a local attorney named Henry Falk. It took years, but those documents eventually became the foundation of the lawsuit that would crack the Red Hat open for the world to see. Weaver didn't return to Angola, but Angola never forgot him. Some guards still refer to him as the doctor who gave the Red Hat its obituary, the lawsuit that shook Angola. The world didn't know about the Red Hat, not really, until one man, attorney Henry Falk, decided he'd had enough. He'd spent years hearing rumors, stories whispered in courtrooms, hints dropped by guards, letters from families of inmates who died of unknown causes. But Weaver's documents? That was proof. In 1952, Falk filed a lawsuit that accused Angola of torture, negligence, medical malpractice, wrongful death, human rights violations, systemic cover-ups. The state fought back hard. They denied everything. They attacked Falk's credibility. They dismissed inmate testimony as criminal lies. But Falk had documents. He had numbers. He had bloodstains on paper. The lawsuit didn't shut the Red Hat down, not yet. But it forced Angola to allow external inspection of the block. And when the inspectors arrived, they found broken plumbing, rusted shackles, unventilated cells, mold, insect infestation, heat-stressed concrete, human scratch marks on the walls, a stench that inspectors described as animalistic. One inspector wrote, "This is not a correctional facility. It is a dungeon." The lawsuit didn't win in court, but it won something else. And that, finally, planted the seed of the Red Hat's downfall.
What you just saw is more than a story. It's a reality lived by thousands behind bars. If you believe in uncovering the truth, the kind hidden behind concrete walls and silence, then join us. Subscribe to Behind Bars TV and never miss a chapter in the world's most dangerous stories. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and remember, freedom and confinement are sometimes only a wall apart.